is show number 189. I can't believe we've done this 189 times. So, Tim, thanks for having me in your house.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
And we have a lot to talk about. I told people we talk about blown up bikes.
We do that quite often.
Well, you don't blow them up. You
fix them.
Fix them, right? So Inside Line Moto is a pretty much independent shop.
Yeah, off-road shop, all off-road, supercar or motocross, adventure touring stuff. No sport bikes, no cruisers, no BMWs.
No BMWs.
No.
That's a little discriminatory.
It is, but we stick to that policy because we've strayed from it a time or two, and we come right back to it.
Okay, staying away from the BMWs.
Yes.
Is it because of the owners?
Partly, but no, more because you need special tool just to check the air pressure in the tires.
And the owner requires that special tool
yes.
to be used.
Yes.
Right. So, hey, Matt, you alive there? Okay, yeah, just check it.
For once, I didn't have a technical issue. I was scared if it might be on your end, though.
Is there feedback?
I'm not hearing it anymore, so I think we're good to go.
Oh, so you were fixing some things.
Yeah, I had lost my chat access for a second, but I brought it back up. But we should still be streaming, no worries.
Okay, just checking. Are we going to be able to see the chat, or are you going to have to chat us up? Oh, you didn't send me the link to the chat.
It's the same link as always. It should be the same link.
Well, that means I have to go back like 6 weeks in emails to figure this out. See, there's already been a technical issue,
yeah,
and it wasn't my fault.
The screw up counter begins.
Where's the screw up counter?
So it's right next to the dial that does the voice matron.
Okay, you don't want me to play with that. Yeah, because I have no idea what kind of a feedback loop that would cause at this point. But welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. Glad you're joining in live, or if you're listening to this in podcast format, like they do here at Inside Line when they get super, super bored, or they want to get really mad, then they listen to Tech Talk Taco Tuesday.
There's not usually too much that makes us annoyed, but it's good background. Be listening to dirt bike. Chatter instead of politics and everything else.
Okay, well, it's good that but it doesn't make you mad.
No. Sometimes we call you on it between us. We talk about how Jimmy might be adding a little more detail to things than
is necessary.
Yeah, or is completely accurate. But then I'd send you a text to correct certain things.
Right, and I bring it back up and correct myself.
Yes,
most of the time.
You're very good about that.
I have no ego in this game. So the reason we do this show, the reason I do this show, the reason we're doing this show is to help people out, to give them kind of a sort of a helping hand with their dirt bike problems, whether they're going to get something new or they're trying to fix something old. Very interesting is your co-owner here at the shop, Matt Lewis, like the name.
Yeah.
So when we say Matt and Matt back here goes what, and Matt on the other line thinks he's messed up the program again. So Matt Lewis, interestingly enough, has a KTM 500,
450, 18 450 EXC 6 days.
Okay, so they all look the same to me, kind of like people.
Yeah.
He had a very interesting problem where the bike, he shut it off, and then it just didn't start back up. And this is a mechanic's own personal bike. And of course, he ended up getting it out, got it back here to the shop. And then when I came, I showed up a little early today, and I said, I can help. And he goes, how would you like to diagnose this? And it's the same problem that we had on the show last week. Another guy with a KTM 500, I believe, I'm not sure exactly what year, but he had the same problem. And so the first thing, what did I say was the first thing when we started talking about this?
I think your first guess was the relay.
Same thing I said to him.
That was Matt's first guess.
Right. Interesting. Just because it's a known kind of a thing. It can be a failure point, a bike that just stops and mysteriously doesn't start. If you're familiar with the internets and the YouTubes and the comments and any post, everybody would have said ground wire.
Yeah.
And because I'm very respectful and I understand the people that we're dealing with, high level mechanics or people that know what's going on. It's like, we've already checked that, right?
Well, and it was cranking and wouldn't start. Fuel
Right.
pump wasn't kicking on, but it was cranking and would not start. So cranking, solid crank means
Generally
we got
means,
good ground.
yeah, but doesn't matter. That's the first thing
Yeah,
you
you always
type into
check
the
it. It's
well,
easy
you
to
always check it, but that's the first thing you type into the chat room
Yeah.
is, oh, check the ground wire.
Yeah.
Even though don't know, but like you said, it was cranking. I kind of knew this. It can't be, but okay. So just out of respect, I didn't just go jump on the ground wire thing, and that's why you pay. Oh, this show's free.
Yeah,
Oh, that was free advice.
that is.
But the next level of advice was relays. Okay, he checked that. He switched the relays around, which we've done. He had, and actually, I'm going to kind of stop this story because I'm going to have him come on later, and we'll kind of diagnose it. But it's interesting that there's probably how many KTM this platform KTM's you think are out there between
A lot.
2000, lots and lots of these bikes, and so we've just had this happen 2 times, so everybody knows that this is going to happen to every single bike. Wait, no, it isn't.
Well, it's just interesting though that we do this ourselves and we have these problems happen to our own bikes. We take it personally because we know what people go through when you're on a big ride and all of a sudden, your bike is dead. It's a problem. So it's not, not quite like every other job. We know that it's what we're passionate about. It's what we all do for fun. And, we've been through, we've been on that end of the the stick when our own bike dies. My own bike has died, and it's definitely a crummy feeling, but we know the things to check.
Yeah, it happens. You kind of go through a system of like, okay, this is from experience, this is what I've checked. The bike starts now. It's here. It starts.
It does.
Well, like I said, we'll get into this a little bit later, but I want to talk about kind of like this little bit of diagnosis, and then just how you do it, and so it's funny. Just is this a common thing? Like every single, you've never seen a KTM 2-stroke TPI bike ever come in here that wasn't seized, right?
That's not true, but we did recently have to rebuild one.
Right. But but if if you just kind of follow the internet,
they don't have clay pistons as I've heard.
Oh, are they
not
clay?
They're not clay.
Huh. Maybe. Well, is it true that KTM started using muriatic acid for radiator fluid and it started eating through the cylinder walls, and then that's what caused all the problems? No. Okay. I heard that one too.
Yeah. Well, the interwebs can be, a blessing and a curse because you can get lost out there and all kinds of information that's, less than accurate, but then sometimes it can lead you right to the answer to a problem. So it definitely goes both ways, but you got to know enough to kind of know how to read through the crap and then find the gems,
the solution. Exactly.
Because they are out there.
A good answer. And speaking of gems and solutions and good things, this show would not be possible without help of a lot of sponsors that we have. Tech Talk Taco Tuesday is brought to you first and foremost by Yamaha. I don't see any Yamahas in here, do I? Oh, wait, no.
Yeah, there's a
TW 200.
TW 200.
Quite possibly one of the best bikes ever. If you talk to us.
Auto clutch in that.
They make them?
No. There is a guy that makes it. You have to send out the hub, have it machined. The guy does it and sends you back the auto clutch.
Yeah. So the reason that Yamahas are not in this repair shop is because they
too reliable.
They never need any repairs at all. And that's like the only reason I'm saying this is because Yamaha does sponsor the show. Yep. And the real reason they sponsor this show is they really like what we do. They say, hey, you guys are doing a pretty good show. They want to support it. So I like to support Yamaha. Thank you to them. Of course, Takamoto later on bringing you Rooster Endo. So what I decided is that you and Matt get to play paper, rock, scissors to see who gets to sit in here for Rooster Endo. Okay. Or one of you can kind of sit in the back and also just point and say that's a good one or that, you do this, that. But love to have you on for that. Brought to you by Takamoto. Scott Sports, Climb, DDC, Trail Tech, Fasst Company Flex Handlebars. Are you a Flex Handlebars guy?
Not on my dirt bike, just because Matt's got my suspension working so well, I don't need it. And I'm a bit younger than you. I'm a bit younger, quite a bit younger. But I do have them on my e-bike.
Because the Fasst Company Flex Handlebars make bad forks good.
Yes.
Yeah. You can have really bad or harsh forks and you'd hardly notice
Which is why I put them on my e-bike, because it felt like I was holding on to a jackhammer going down
on your mountain bike.
Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it fixed that, or it really helped that.
I have them on my e-bike, and this weekend I rode my analog pedal bike. It was mostly uphill, but there was some sections that were downhill that had washboards.
Yeah.
My wrist, oh, the hell.
You're old.
Thank you. Seat Concepts, Bulletproof Designs, and Double Take Mirrors, all bringing you Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. Tonight, you can also help us out by clicking through our Rocky Mountain MCA TV links and Amazon links on the website. Just go to the website, click the support us thing, little thing pulls down. We need to get one of those link trees or something. You know all about this. You're big onto the whole digitals and the internet.
Real big on all this.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about setting those things up in the near future. I put Matt in charge of it, and then he went and tried to get a real job, and he doesn't pay much attention to any of this dirt bike stuff anymore. For good reason, Matt, because you're getting torn apart in your new 450 intermediate level review.
Torn apart? I thought a lot of people liked it so far.
Well, I just looked at the one bad comment, and then I'm just going to start rubbing that in.
The one bad comment that said, "Where's the counter?"
Yes.
Oh, that's a fair count. That's fair. I wouldn't say that's bad. Actually, I thought the username said Asher, so I think that's Asher who watches the show regularly.
Oh, so he's complimenting you by saying that you need to, work on the ums.
I think he's giving me a hard time in good fun.
Whoa. Yeah, that was a weird sound.
Yeah, turn that knob back from where
that knob has nothing to do with
the show.
Anything.
The show seems to be going well so far, Jimmy. Don't touch a thing.
Yes.
Well, I was just adjusting my volume here because you're a little overbearing in my ears.
Got it.
Kind of like usual. Yeah. I was just gonna say so intermediate level. Is this the class that you're racing now? Intermediate?
About mid-range in a Moran race, so I'd say maybe not intermediate in like a District 37 race.
Okay, so since you beat all of our we'll call them novice expert racers that do stuff for dirt bike tests, and not the experts that you got to ride the 450s with, and that's Trevor and Tyler, and those guys are fast, right?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
But
I was by far the worst rider there. Like, it wasn't even close.
Okay, so where would we rank? Like, remember Logan? He's hard to remember because he doesn't talk much.
Yeah.
And
so, Logan went.
Tim here's going to talk about how Logan doesn't talk much too, right? You're not going to pick on him?
No, not at all. I never met the kid.
But you feel like you know him.
Not really. Not really.
Not really. Okay, so Logan and Cooper, where are they? Where are those guys at level wise?
Well, let's see. We'll put the guys I was with were pros. They're actually pros. I would say Logan and Cooper would, if I'm intermediate, I'd say they're probably expert, but probably closer to my side of the spectrum than those guys that I was riding with.
How hard am I going to have to beat you up to knock you down to novice?
Well, you could put me to novice if you want, but for marketing reasons, I don't know if that's really good to say, oh yeah, we have a novice at our riding school. We're teaching.
You're a novice level racer, but an expert teacher.
Yeah. Oh, for
tough sale.
Racing, yeah.
Tough sale. Yeah. Not sure that's the best slogan.
He relates to more people are novices and beginners, and he relates to them.
Yeah. I put myself as an intermediate trail rider. I didn't say intermediate racer.
Intermediate trail rider.
Yeah. I feel like that's a more accurate description. I don't think I ever said I'm a racer. I said intermediate trail rider.
Okay. Just picking on you.
Yeah. You can pick on me, but I got my facts in line. Like we're good here.
All good. Anyways, okay. And button pusher. I'm a pro button pusher, but where are your button pushing abilities as far as related to this podcast?
I would say I am advanced, maybe expert button pusher here. It's really easy to push down and up on a button, but I can do it better than most.
Got it.
I was button pushing a lot with my new job.
Good. Okay. Okay. You can go back to sleep now. The rest of the show we won't pick on you.
Sounds good. I've just been sipping on beers and checking the score of the Knights game. So.
What's the Knights?
Vegas Golden Knights hockey, Stanley Cup playoffs.
Hockey.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's the one. That's That's the one where they put the ball through the hoop, right?
No, that's the puck in the net on the ice.
On the ice, right? I like to keep my beers not really on ice, but anyways, okay, Matt. Don't leave us hanging, and keep the chat questions coming, because I can't see them.
I sent you an email.
Oh, okay, good. I'll try to fix that. Tim, now you have to take over. This is the part of the show where I would kind of like, I would pretend like I'm gesturing, like I'm opening the bottle.
Yeah.
And that was the throw to Logan.
Well, but we haven't gotten any topics started yet. I thought you were gonna,
You're sitting in front of a Husaberg piston.
That I am. I was gonna give this one to Jimmy because it still got some life left in it, and I know Jimmy wants things that have life left in it. A little JB Weld right here. You can put that puppy in there and get at least another few hours out of it.
So the interesting thing about this piston that's sitting, it's a Husaberg 570 piston, and he was looking to show me some things that they have that were like blown up, and he holds it up and he's walking around and he's like, what did this come out of?
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
And I just glanced at it and I said, Husaberg 570.
And then I remembered, because I was telling him earlier about the last Husaberg we worked on. It was about a year ago. Did a full motor rebuild, and I couldn't remember why. And then I dug through my junk box and found this, and he knew immediately that it was the Husaberg piston. And then it reminded me that, yeah, that's right. That's why that thing needed an entire motor, because it was pinging, and it broke off a piece of the piston, because the top of the piston gets super, super heated when it's compressing the explosion. It's hard on everything, but definitely gets the piston real hot. Piece of it broke off, bent the valves, bent the rod, did a number on that one. But the guy, like Jimmy, loves it, loves his Husaberg.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a whole nother conversation.
Actually, we have to put a bell in this kit now. In my
that would be good.
We start ringing the bell when we, grace the Husaberg with the endless compliments. Even in blowing up, it could be one of the most powerful motorcycles you could ever ride.
It was running real good until it blew up. Right before it blew up was making good power. So,
and Chris Hernandez needs an Inside Line Moto koozie.
He's got them. He's got a boat full of them, I'm sure.
A boat full.
Yeah.
Is that where you put him, on the boat?
Oh, he's got he's definitely one of our river buddies.
Got it. So anyways, yes, if you're in the Orange County area and you do need to have your bike serviced by professionals, unlike me, who just make stuff up, bring it down here, because even if it's a Husaberg 570, they can fix it.
We'll work on it.
Yeah, just not a BMW.
No BMWs, sorry.
The Husaberg is almost as weird as a BMW in a lot of ways.
And so are the owners.
Actually.
So are the owners.
Really?
Yeah, they're definitely in the same category.
I used to race BMWs, right?
Yeah, but that was a whole different.
No, that's weird too.
Yeah, I guess.
Most people don't do that. Is the Husaberg 570 one of the worst bikes to work on?
Oh,
ever?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Okay,
absolutely.
good.
It's way up there. It's got a solid spot at the very near top of the podium. I'd have to think about it a minute to see if there's something worse, but definitely going to put it at the top until I go through the Rolodex.
I like everything about it except for working on it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, especially when you put a dual sport kit on it.
Oh, extra wires? They love extra wires.
Matt has a very even temper. Everyone that knows Matt knows he's a pretty calm and level-headed guy.
Right.
He gets a little steamed when he's working on the Husaberg.
Dual sport Husaberg.
Because the way that subframe, sometimes it's a gas tank subframe. And the way those wiring harnesses have to pass through there when it's dual sport, so now it's extra wires more than stock. It was
so I take that clump, and it's like the size of my arm.
It's big,
and it needs to go in something that's half that size, and it runs right. It's on the opposite side of the muffler, but is it close? It's close to the shock. Or maybe it's close to the chain. I don't know. It's in a bad spot.
There's not space there.
And then we put that 70-degree tank on there. That gets a little bit thicker. But I take it and I wrap it in heat shrink, and then I put a really good thick, like kind of like a plasticky hardening stuff on it, and zip tie it. And so like when that wiring harness, when I'm done with it, doesn't move, and it's on all three of my 570s. I have a problem. But yeah, because I don't ever want to work on that. So I do spend a little bit of time. It's when I have a lot of extra time to work on those.
Our recommendation is throw some signals on the back and don't wire them up. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Use hand signals.
Yeah, those extra 2 little wires that go to the
signals. It's just when they break and you got to try to chase them, and just keep it simple.
Right on. Okay. So I was going to ask, because some questions I have. So the shop here, like, what is the usual? Like, what usually comes in the door?
I mean, we do a lot of KTM and Husky, which is KTM now. Do a lot of KTM and Husky stuff. That it was our background before we started this shop almost 12 years ago. But KTM is just the most popular out there for the desert and everything, and dual sport especially. So KTM and Huskies is our most popular off-road, desert guys, dual sport guys. We have, a handful of motocrossers, but we do tend to do most of the European or the Austrian stuff. But we work on all flavors. We get a lot of the Japanese stuff through, and but just service, suspension service,
Yep.
engine overhauls, major, minor. Sometimes the diagnostics even on our own bikes from time to time, which is always a little more difficult, but that's
So
what we do.
so you're doing everything from big full on rebuilds.
Yep.
Coming here, you told me a story earlier about a DRZ 400.
Yeah. The worst bike, the worst failure we've ever seen, and it was just complemented by the customer's description was quite funny. This was many years ago, right when we first started the shop, and he brought a DRZ 400 in, was getting hard to start, and now won't start. All right, simple enough. Let's have a look.
I'm just gonna just did it have compression?
Well, it's an electric start bike, and it had resistance.
Okay, so you push the button and it would turn over.
I mean, it sounded like something's going on in there,
Okay, yeah.
but it didn't sound healthy.
A little more than loose valves.
A little more.
Okay.
And
yeah.
To shorten the story up, the ultimately what it was is the piston had cocked. It obviously had cocked this way, and somehow he had tried dragging it behind a truck for many miles.
Or he lived on top of a hill.
Yeah, but either way, it had forged the side of the piston into the top of the head in such a way that I can't imagine what that must have sounded like, because it came in. I looked through my phone. I don't have the picture anymore of the piston, literally like with the head. This just totally forged to the head of the cylinder head. So it was one of those ones. It's like, wow, how does that even happen?
So do you think it like slowly started turning sideways and worked its way up there?
By the time we saw it, the piston was so broken, it's hard to say how that could have even happened. I mean, parts of it were down in the crank,
of course.
So maybe part of it broke away, and then it just kind of smashed what was left flat. But either way, it was just like, wow, you thought you saw everything, and now
But hard to start and getting worse.
And now it won't start.
Now it won't start.
Oh, okay. Well, that's obvious. It won't start. Never gonna. And that bike, we don't enjoy sending bikes to the graveyard.
Right.
But death sentences are something that we have to do from time to time. It's like, hey, this bike is too far gone, because it was many years old. I don't even remember what year it was. And it just.
Well, they haven't changed much, but.
Regardless, the bike wasn't in pretty shape to begin with, and now it needs an entire engine. So. Customer, had to digest that and ultimately find a new place, to dispose of it.
Yeah. Part out the parts that still.
That's what we always recommend. Part out the shock and the fork and the, some of the wheels and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you just hang on to it forever, just park it in the corner. Like I do that with a lot of bikes, but all mine, I park them in the corner and they run, and then they lose so much value I can't even sell them, and I think I should just part it out. And the good thing with my RFS is now, like, some of the parts that I have are getting hard to find.
Counter shafts. We have a guy that's got a pretty clean 450-07, the last year of them.
Yep.
And his counter shaft, the sprocket, we put a new sprocket on, so half the splines got replaced, but now it needs a shaft.
Right.
It's discontinued from KTM, so
those
parts are going up in value. Good to know.
Yeah, the problem is all mine are in running motors, so it's like I'm not really going to pull that shaft out. But you would think with as many of those bikes are out there, because I'm experiencing this with some of my older Husabergs 650s, for instance. There's guys that are remanufacturing certain high wear parts, the ones that the counterbalancer shafts and things like this. But I would suspect that somebody would get in there and figure out a way to
someday
to do that. And can that stuff be hard welded and remachined?
I don't know of anyone that does that. I know if there's a demand for it, I'm sure it could be
Yeah,
done,
something
but
will
I don't,
pop up.
because that's what I worry about. We both still have 950s, and I love my 950 Adventure. It's just an amazing bike, but it's getting old. And
Yeah.
I've actually heard there's a guy, I don't know even what country he's in, but he's starting to kind of pick up the old, and
Oh,
create a boneyard
okay.
for 950 Adventures, the LC8, the '03 to 11, 950s and 990s. So, unfortunately, that will be where,
Those bikes.
that's where it goes
Yeah, I used to
eventually.
see. It's funny. There's certain bikes that you see a lot of that were popular, and then now we're 20 years into RFS. Those bikes are
Yeah.
20. Those are
Yeah. More.
roughly 20. It could be 22 or 23, or it could be 18 or 19 years old for that thing. Where I think the manufacturer pretty much they make parts for about 10 years after.
I think that's what they're legally required to do.
So 10 years and then maybe a little bit longer, but then they have a surplus. And by that time, they have an idea of what, hey, this is a wear item, this isn't. And then maybe in 15 years, that the wear of that one part, like kind of that's its lifespan for the ones that are being used. And then they weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
Got, output shafts, for instance,
Right.
or, there's certain gears, but yeah, it's amazing that bikes last that long or run that long. And they're
Yeah.
still, I need to do this. I need to take like a 450 or 525 RFS and compare it to like a 500, just do a comparison and like an actual like little, because some of that stuff, people love that stuff, especially the guys that have the old ones that will tell you all day long, like, how awesome two-stroke 500s are.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and I say the same thing about 525s.
right.
They were phenomenal bikes in their day, but their day, if you look at the calendar, has passed by quite a bit. And, and again, they're still fine bikes,
I got one for
but
sale. Keep
I
saying
know
fine.
they are fine. And, we still work on them, and, for good reason. They're good bikes, and the new bikes are, you go get a 500 EXC today, and do some of the basic setup and, all the stuff we like to do to our bikes. You're looking at 20 grand.
Yep.
So to keep riding your 525 is totally understandable. But they are, getting up there in age, and the new bikes have come a long way. It would be interesting to see, because the new bikes last longer too. The new bikes, I've got 700 hours on my 500 EXC, and that was one of the things I was going to just kind of throw it out to other people and just see what people are thinking, because I still am torn on whether or not to tear it down and put a crank.
Here's a mechanic.
Yeah.
Here's a mechanic, owns his own bike, rides the piss out
Rides
of
a
it.
lot.
And it's like I'm the same way. I have a few of them with 500 hours on them, and I've not done anything to them.
Yeah.
Like zero.
Yep.
Not even adjusted the valves. Haven't needed to. I've checked them, and I checked things a few times. Every time I change oil, look at it. I'm like, that looks good. Some of them are making a little tick. Some of them smoke just a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like, we asked this, is it time? So, I mean,
it's a hard call, because I don't ever want to get stranded, because I know how bad, that's a bummer. And, so I bought all the parts. I was going to do it last year about this time. I bought a crank or a rod and all the pieces, all the bearings, every single bottom end bearing and everything. And I've got them all sitting in a box, and I'm ready to do it, but the bike's still running beautifully. I did a top end at about 500 hours, and it looked beautiful. And then it's been
so top end.
Top end.
That was cylinder and piston.
No, piston only. Piston only. I didn't even touch the valves, because the valves were in perfect shape. I never have had to adjust them, because the valve train on the newer KTMs, newer being the last 10 or 12 years, has been awesome. They don't need much, because they're just very robust.
If you're not floating the valves,
right,
and not sending dirt through the motor,
right. Air filters perfectly is key. Most important maintenance you can do on a dirt bike is air filter maintenance. Yep. But yeah, not revving it unnecessarily. That's a good way to just prolong, the life.
And this isn't just KTM. This is any bike.
Yep, any dirt bike, especially. Go riding in the dust and the dirt. It's amazing how much dirt damage we see. Guys just not using good enough air filter oil, not getting the air filter on correctly on certain bikes. Just, it's the most important thing you can do. So definitely start there. Another thing I was talking about with somebody recently, because I kind of forgot, carbureted bikes. One of the reasons that the new fuel injected bikes last longer is because they're not sucking dust in, the little parasitic amount of dust that is sucked in through the carburetor vent lines on a carbureted bike. I remember there was companies that used to sell carb vent line filter kits, and
George Earl
they
used
never
to have one.
worked. I know they never worked though. I understood why they were doing it, but they never really worked. So that's why you can get 200 to 300 hours on a 525 top end, where the valves wear. I know the valves weren't as good as the new valves.
It's funny. I've heard about the dust coming in through the carb vent lines.
You take the top of the carburetor off, dude, there's full on dirt in the lid of the FCR carb. That's where it's coming from, is in through the vent lines.
Yeah, but I've never heard somebody go as far as to say that could be the difference between the 300 hours and the 500.
One of the reasons, but it's significant.
It makes perfect sense.
The valve train being better helps.
Yeah, I thought you were literally going to go start talking about carburetors as jets kind of plugging up a little bit and then running leaner, causing the bike to run hotter. That's kind of when you started going down carburetor, like how could it be? I'm like, because I'm thinking, the whole time I'm trying to think, but that's.
But yeah, because my 500, I do the air filter perfectly. I know that for a fact. I do it every time, and I'm the only one that's ever touched it, and there's never dust in that air boot. So I know no dirt has ever been ingested through the motor, and I got 500 hours out of my first piston, and honestly, it was premature at that, when I did it. So.
Okay, what air filter oil are you running?
At the time, we were using Maxima FFT, and we highly recommend that sticky petroleum-based oil. Now we're actually using Liqui-Moly, because the Maxima stuff, I don't know for sure. All we know is empirically what we experience here at the shop. Take a brand new air filter. I know how to oil it. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I was noticing a drip underneath the bike the next day. It's like, I did the air filter. I know how to do the air filter. I don't over oil them. I know how to wring out the right amount. So it's like it got a little thinner, and this is going back a year or two.
It's funny because if there was one thing, and I haven't used FFT for a long time, I have some, and I used to have a lot of it because they used to send up the magazine, and I could never use all of it. And I always thought it was a little bit too thick. And then I kind of thought that maybe it thickened up because it had been sitting on the shelf for a little while, and some of the dispersants, and maybe I didn't shake it up good enough or something like that. But I mean, I've always thought that is a really good.
And it is. It's still adequate, right? But we found the Liqui-Moly air filter oil. That stuff is incredible. I mean, it is
interesting.
We always just pour it on. We don't put it in a tub and then dunk the filter in. That's unnecessary. And all the chemical is evaporating. Even though you keep a sealed lid on it, it's still just pour it on.
In the tub, it's thickening up.
Right. Yeah. Pour it on and cap it, and then you massage it through and wring it out over some newspaper in your trash can, wring out the excess, making sure you got good, even coverage. But as it tacks up, it's just, it's amazing how sticky this stuff is. And I can absolutely guarantee no dust will ever pass through it. I've had my filter so dusty and dirty where you flick it like a desert racer would, with the silt that's just falling off the filter. You take it out and it's absolutely spotless inside. And that's what you need to protect your engine.
So when at Dirt Rider, we did a pretty extensive air filter comparison, air filter oil and cleaner comparison. And we were basically oiling filters and giving them to guys that were riding desert races and different things like that. We just got a ton of filters and did all this stuff. And if the filter was properly oiled, pretty much with no matter what it was, they never passed dirt on a good filter. Some of the filters so if you had a filter that basically flowed more, which they make, there's filter companies that promote their filters flow more. Well, sometimes it's a little less dense foam. And at that point, if you did not put a tacky air filter oil like the Maxima, for instance, on that filter, if you put a very light oil, and I will say that trying to remember some of the light ones. I know for a fact that the Note oil and the rock oil, which were the rock oil is water washable. This is what I use. This water washable synthetic air. They call it eco foam now. Yeah. And then the Note oil, which rinses out with its own kind of detergent, or were kind of lighter, and they didn't have that petroleum kind of stick to them. You could pass dirt on the lesser filters, but if you're running a good filter like a Twin Air, it's not.
And Note oil, we've seen absolutely necessary if you're going to use that, which is not our recommendation, but if you are, to make sure to oil it right before the ride, because we've seen it dry out.
Okay. And so there were oils that we would say spread easier, or were lighter. Yeah. It was sometimes you could oil a filter in a lighter oil that like I said, the dispersants would evaporate off and it wouldn't leave nearly as much oil as some of the thicker oils that took a little bit more time to knead and get in there and really work it into place. And even with the water washable stuff, you kind of have to put, I would say, you have to put like 15% more in the filter than, if you were like measuring, and this is something we didn't do, which would have been interesting to do, to put a fixed amount into, the thing and see how it kind of worked out. But I think, like I said, if you're, most air filter oils are generally pretty good. As long as you kind of understand what you're dealing with and everything. But that's why I asked, because like, hey, what are you using? You're having really good success. And I was the same thing. I haven't, unless my filter dried out. And the other thing about some of the ones that use different kind of carriers is a lot of times those carriers aren't good between the plastic frame and the foam filter, or the foam and the rubber membrane on the thing. And if there's like, if I'm not washing my filter every 2 or 3 months, like, because some of my bikes sit for a long time, I put a petroleum-based oil on the filter, because that, I think the alcohol, which is some of the dispersants, or the alcohol, like whatever they're using, it will cause that foam to break down or it can eat the glue. That's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Well,
just going back to the life expectancy and just trying to gauge when to do my engine, rebuild proactively, yet not too proactively. I don't want to throw away a bunch of good parts. The parts aren't cheap. And I remember there was a guy, I forget his name, that was from like New Zealand or something, and he rode basically my bike, a 14 or a 15 500, all around the world.
Okay, yeah.
And he had to stop in different places to get the motor worked on, and I'd like to I should search him out, and just try to find what.
I think Taco Mike knows this guy.
Does he?
Yeah,
okay.
I think he kind of helped him out, came through the thing.
I know he came through the States. He went all around the world, but he put, and it was mostly like adventure type miles, but he put many, many thousands of miles and hours, many more than mine. And I'd be curious to know, how long did your rod last? Because
what wore out?
It's 700 hours. If he says he got 1,200, well, I could definitely go another trip to Colorado and not worry. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. I don't want to throw away good parts. I got another friend
and you don't. I mean, you have the ability, the skills, the parts, everything to put it back together to make it so that, but I'm always, even where my level of mechanical ability and everything is, which I feel is, like it's intermediate, like a little bit higher than novice. I don't know, Matt's probably laughing right now, right? It's intermediate, because there's guys that are pros. And the reason I'm not a pro is because I'm kind of a hack. I mean,
you use a hammer a lot.
I'll use I'll just, I mean, I have not built very many DNF bikes, period. I mean, they all kind of work, and I know it there, but it's the potential, if it's running perfect and good and everything the way, the potential for me to screw it up is higher. Like my first question when somebody comes to me and says, hey, my bike did this and it did that, and I'm like, what was the last thing you did to it? That's almost the first question I asked. Absolutely. And they're like, yeah, it's an electrical problem. Like, what was the last thing you did? Well, I put a battery into it. And it's like, okay, or I took the gas tank off, and it's like, oh, you pinched wires. It's just something kind of.
No, part of me doesn't want to crack a factory sealed case, that's not having problems. And it's not because I'm superstitious about it. It's just because, it is running fine. And, I just don't know when that perfect time is. I want to get it. Like I rebuilt my 300. I've got an '08 300 that I probably had about 600 or 700 hours on it, roughly, when I did the crank in it, put a rod in it. And when the machine shop sent back the old part, the rod pin definitely showed significant wear. Like, you probably didn't have a whole bunch more time left in this part, but it didn't fail. So perfect timing, and I'd kind of like to be somewhere in that neighborhood when I do my
you would be so lucky that you take it out and it's like just
I did my water pump on my 950 one time proactively before a big week or whatever 10-day trip, and when I took the water pump seal out, the back of the water pump seal was all milky, like it was just starting to leak. It's like, well, that was pretty good timing. You get lucky every
sometimes.
Once in a while.
Hey, we've got a question through the chat. Larry Giles asks, and Larry is captain safety. He's come on the show before.
Okay.
He's a former lifeguard longtime lifeguard. I want to get him back on because he has some interesting stuff. He thinks the show's maybe not the level of professional that he needs to be at. But he says, what are the top 3 upgrade requests you guys get at your shop for EXC 350s or 500s, and your top 3 recommendations for trail riding?
On a 350 EXC?
350. He has a 350. I know this.
I mean, it's the standard, stuff that we do to race bikes. We just desmog them and uncork them. That's kind of the main thing. Suspension would be a very close second. The bike needs to be set up for your weight and what you're doing, especially on some of the newer EXCs. Depending on what you're doing, they don't have a lot of valving in the forks. So we've got a number of different ways we can set the fork up to work much better. Obviously with the springs, to start out with for the proper, rider weight plus gear. Plus gear is usually a lot more than people necessarily factor. They think they're 180 out of the shower. So yeah, I like springing for 200. It's like, well,
15.
It might be,
yeah.
It might be a bit more than that. 215. It would be probably closer, especially depending on the backpack size you wear.
No, I was going to say add 15. Usually gear is like 15 pounds.
And a lot of our guys, desert riders and dual sport
guys, wear?
A lot. Backpacks alone with 3 liters of water is, and some tools that can be, 15 pounds right there.
They're not wearing the lightweight climb stuff that I'm wearing.
Yeah. Boots is 6 pounds, a helmet 6 pounds. So you're at 12 just with that.
It should be 6 pounds.
Well,
you don't want that. You don't want your helmet to be 6 pounds.
My new one's not. I just got a 6D, one of the new ones.
Yeah,
I like it.
Lightweight is good on that on my helmet.
But those, those are the first 2 as far as a third.
So uncorked, set up suspension,
and then the third would be guards, just
protection.
Everyone's got kind of a different level, a different standard as far as what they want as for protection. And I often will kind of talk. We've got all the Bulletproof Design stuff up front, and
Bulletproof Design's a good sponsor of this show.
Products,
Yep, but they're going to bring the viewers Tim or Matt's product for the week.
Yeah, we can pull
and it
off
can
the
be
shelf and show you.
It can be anything that you want. It doesn't have to be Bulletproof. It can be anything.
That's right. Okay.
I said that. I told him about 2 minutes. Told Tim about 2 minutes before the show. I said this is
we'll do a product of the week.
Product of the week. Yeah, you guys figure it out.
We got 2 hours.
Could be the Inside Line koozie. That's my pick right now. It's working for me perfectly right now.
So I'll usually talk it through with them as far as what ideas are out there as far as, things like skid plate and disc guards. I know Jimmy's got his opinions and we all have our own opinions.
Front disc guards?
Yeah.
I like big rear. I like big
rear.
I'm looking at that.
I know.
That's Matt's bike. I didn't even.
It is. You didn't get him for that yet. Wait till he's on.
Oh yeah.
Can really get him
good.
I
do like one thing he did to it though.
What's that?
He chopped it.
We got a bill for that.
Yeah, he chopped it down so he could get at the fork.
And it doesn't sit because that's a cone valve fork on Matt's bike that he's looking at. The clevises are different, and the Bulletproof Design doesn't quite sit right. So he put it on the mill and made it nice. But you can see the anodizing is cut off. But yeah, you can get to the pinch bolts on the front, and then it sits properly on the bottom.
So on my hard enduro bike, I do run the Bulletproof Designs fork protectors like that.
He's got that on the other side.
Yeah. So I've run the Acerbis plastic ones and also these aluminum ones on different bikes. But on the bike, when I went and did King of the Motos, I put the aluminum ones on there because I knew that the potential to just drop that thing into a crevice.
And what we've seen many times when we'll go to take apart a fork just to get the base valve out,
they don't come out.
Just because it got nicked with a rock, and so that can protect for that. So, but we'll go through the list of different guards, and then each individual rider kind of knows what they ride and how hard they ride and the type of stuff they ride, and they can kind of prioritize what they think is necessary. Like some people don't think the swing arm chain guide guard is terribly important because they're not really hammering through the rocks. So okay, and they might then just opt for the skid plate, and on a Husky, skid plate with linkage guard,
right?
And we've got different options on all that stuff that we recommend for different reasons. And I joke with Jimmy all the time about some of the influencers that are out there in the internet's world, and some know what they're talking about. Some don't. But, we don't have any skin in the game. We just sell you products that we know, that we've tested, that, we know are good. And,
because people can come back here.
Mm-hmm.
You got a brick and mortar shop, and we were even talking about that with like one of, I remember what it was. You said, no, we wouldn't do that right now because we don't trust it. We can't, we could, I don't know. It was like, we wouldn't want to fix that now because we just don't trust it. It could come back. The parts aren't readily available. I don't remember what it was, but it was something like, it's like, yeah, you just like we talked about with that DRZ 400, that thing's got to go to the graveyard.
Yeah. Well, and just as a shop, we have to be able to stand behind our work no matter what it is. But it's just, we don't have any skin in the game when we're selling people Bulletproof Designs products. It's because we truly believe in them. Some people, not Jimmy, but others, well, they're just pushing products because they're getting them for free. And that's not who we are. We're just selling you products because we know they work. And if you look at our bikes, you'll usually see that we have, those products on our bikes for those reasons. And we pay full price. I don't have any free climb stuff, but I pay for all my climb. I wear climb, and I think it's good gear, and that's why I spend my money on it. So it's just, but that's the way we go through that process with people, as far as what they think is necessary, and we steer them in whatever way they want to go.
And I think, like a lot of times, I've learned this in this industry is when I'm dealing with somebody that's a rider that rides and does stuff, I can usually have a really good conversation with them, and then they understand it. They've either used it, whether it's their company or they're selling stuff, we're on the same page, and we can agree to disagree because they might have an opinion about one thing or the other, but it's from experience. It's not from a marketing sheet, or it's not the I've had discussions with influencers, influencer type people. I'm like, well, what's up with that? And a lot of times they'll say to me, they'll go, oh yeah, I did these guys, they sent me this thing,
right?
Free
parts.
I'm like, well, how does it work? Oh, like that. And then you go look at what they posted. Right. I don't actually usually go look at they post. Sometimes I see what they posted and I see them, and I'm like, hey, that thing you said this, and I know because I know differently just from experience, but I'm just kind of curious where they're at with things, and like we looked at the Cyclops light today that Matt has in this thing, and you're like, hey Jimmy, what do you usually run? I usually run Baja Designs. It's just I've worked with Alan forever when Alan owned Baja Designs and their stuff, and then we just started kind of chatting back and forth, and then you turn the damn light on, and I'm like, well, I didn't need to bring my lights in here tonight for doing it. I mean, and I know the guys at Cyclops are great guys. They came and did stuff with us at the Dirt Rider 24-hour. They supplied lights. You can tell they're heavily invested in the game, and this is at Takamoto. They want to do a big, very extensive light comparison, and I kind of helped them design a testing platform for like, let's do this, and they literally want to do some quote lab results on lights, measure them, have a jig so they can set the lights in and aim them all exactly the same, and measure the spread and all these different cool things using Chris Reel. For instance, because Chris likes this kind of stuff as well. And then, hey, when you want somebody to come out and ride it, bring it out. Yeah. We'll plop it on the bikes.
We've done a few of those real basic, tests, not too scientific, but in the back alley, a different time of year when it gets dark early. And, we roll the bikes out when we had a Ruby. We had I have a Baja Design Squadron XL. Squadron XL. Or XL80, I can't remember. And then Matt has the Cyclops. I can't remember what that one's called, but we just took all three. The Ruby is impressive. My Baja Designs one is impressive. One of the things that I like about the Cyclops, though, and we like about the Cyclops, is that it's light.
The weight,
it's light, pardon the pun, but it is, the Baja Designs light. I noticed a rattle on my 500, and it just, little stuff like that as a mechanic just irritate me. Going down, and I wear earplugs when I ride, and I could hear something, and I would hear it on gnarly, rocky downhills. And come to find out, it was my headlight mask jumping up and down.
Oh, and it was just the pins.
Yeah, and the only reason I couldn't hear it on any other time is because you're on the gas, and it's just enough to mute that, and I couldn't hear it. But I'd be going down these things, and I hear something rattling. It's not my chain. It's not, what is it? So I figured it out. So I actually did it around the campfire that night with a nail and a pair of vice grips, heated it up in the fire and melted holes in the mask and the fender, and put a zip tie to hold the mask down, and it solved that problem. But it's because the Baja Designs light is a little on the heavy side, where these new Cyclops lights put out extremely good light, but they're on, I believe, 3D printed plastic backings or, mounts and stuff. So, it shaves quite a bit of weight off, probably more than half. And nearly the same light. I don't know. Again, I'd be curious to read that test when they finally do it.
Yep.
Numbers and stuff. I like that kind of stuff.
It's like the numbers are the numbers that they will try to make sure that it's consistent and stuff like that. But then, like, how does it work? Because this is the one thing that I really liked about when I was doing stuff with Baja Designs is they were so particular about placing. Before it was the bulb, and then it was the HID filament, and now the LED lens in the exact spot, and then figuring out the way that the reflectors work and the light temperature and things that I've talked with people that own light companies that you start talking about light temperature, and that's just a number that they don't understand. It's like they're just buying LEDs from someplace and just sticking them in the lights.
And then you end up with bright fog.
Well, then they send them to some influencers that aren't going to ask them these kind of questions.
And they're the best thing ever.
Yeah. Oh, they're great.
Like, no, it's bright fog. But if you get the focal point right, the throw is correct. Yeah. And boy, now you've got a real light.
Yeah. And the guys that have been doing it for a while, companies have been underground for, been selling this stuff for a while. But the ones you buy on Amazon, I don't think they're too worried about it. Or eBay even better, some of the crazy ones they have there. Yep. So we got a question here. And Chris Real has a comment. We will quantify the light specifics.
Yeah, I know Chris will. I've known Chris for a long time.
Yeah, he will quantify.
He's never shy or never short with information. Lots of it, and it's good, very knowledgeable information. And as a moto guy, I definitely appreciate that stuff, even though I don't do the testing myself.
But Low Bro says, putting together a YZ250 tranny, wondering why they chose to pin the forks to the shaft. If you unpin them, I think there'd be a little easier shifting since the forks can slide on the shaft, because it would be a lot easier to put together. I'm wondering.
I can't picture it. Matt would actually be a really good one to talk on the trans. Just, I don't know when the last YZ we had a part was, but
in the forks to the shaft. I'm trying to remember, because I know there was times in Yamaha, like all the companies that were constantly changing on the motocross bikes, constantly changing kind of their transmissions to get them to shift a little bit better. That was one of the things they were doing, because they were putting them on springs, kind of like what KTM does. They took them off springs, on springs, just a lot of different things. But Low Bro, I can't.
Something I was surprised. I was out
round the world. Paul is the guy we were talking about on the KTM 500.
Oh, okay.
RTW Paul.
Yeah, I want to write that down. Actually,
is the guy. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I remember I kind of followed some of the information for a little while, his story and stuff, and it just was really cool because it's basically my bike. I think it's a 15, but basically same bike.
Hey, Matt, we're gonna go ahead and let's hit a couple of the questions here while Tim's here. We'll do half of them, I guess, and then we'll take a break.
Okay, the ones on the ones on the sheet.
On the sheet, yeah, and then I'll bring Matt and we'll give him a shot at the second half of the questions, and we'll go from there. So what's give us the hardest one.
All right, so we'll go with the one that you were sent. So if this is from Mark C, the bike's,
because I want Tim to sound exactly like Logan when you get that question.
No. So
that's Matt.
Oh,
Matt's
yeah.
He just silent.
Yeah,
Logan's just quiet.
The bike is a 2001 KTM 400 MXC. It was bought used, so not much history. It will kickstart, but not start with the button. Replace the electric starter with a budget-friendly starter, not OEM. Starter spring is good. Problem is the starter spins in the wrong direction / clockwise. If I reverse the battery connection, the starter will turn the motor over, but pops the 10 amp fuse. Battery and solenoid seem fine, but not sure why the starter is spinning backwards. Took the starter apart, but no way to change the magnet orientation or change assembly. Do I replace the starter and hope the new one spins correctly, or is it a bad solenoid?
No, I mean, if the starter's spinning backwards, I would have to verify that myself, but that it might be just a Chinese piece of junk that, who knows what you got. But if the thing just freewheels, it almost sounded like the sprag was in backwards, the way I was kind of hearing it there for a second.
But
but
he says starter sprag is good.
But when he reverses the polarity on the thing and he tries cranking it, it engages, but it might be spinning the motor backwards and then it pops the fuse.
Oh, I just thought
Something
I just
weird.
thought the
Sounds
starter was
weird.
spinning. I thought the starter was spinning backwards the whole time. Yeah, budget friendly
I would
starter.
want to know for sure that the starter is spinning backwards, and I don't know that I could explain that here on the show, how I would verify that.
Right.
Like I'd have to kind of look at all the pieces to know which way it's all supposed to spin, which is hard to do, verbally.
Yeah. So the problem is the starter spins the wrong direction,
I
which
would
is
want to verify that.
clockwise. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of. I'd have to in an
I'd have to look at
MXC.
it.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. I'd have to look at the bike to figure it out. Same like you.
Just be sure it's actually backwards. That would be where I would start, because I find that hard to believe because I don't know what
Because the starters, in all honesty,
starters don't usually go bad either.
Yeah.
That's rare.
Well, yeah, they can wear out. Yeah, like
they
things
can, but
wear
it's usually not at the top end of the list on that bike, which Matt and I know that particular bike quite well because we were working at the dealership when that bike was new.
Right. And I think I've replaced on all I had 20 RFS bikes. I think I replaced one starter.
Right. The starters weren't
and it was
prone to fail.
I think it was used to ride the bike up hills.
Yeah.
It's a technique that Crazy Nate used. They're perfected.
It's hard
hold the kill button and push the starter motor and just let the bike drag it
like an e-bike with the walk feature.
My bike has that, but I forgot how to make it work.
Usually I just have to hold it.
Yeah.
It doesn't do it right away, and you can't be on it. My e-bike's smart enough to know if it's helping you at all.
Yeah, it's really for walking. Yeah. So, okay, Mark C, that was the answer to that question. I would say if the starter went bad and you put a shitty starter on it and you didn't change anything inside the cases, just spend the extra bucks and get a good, decent one. And there are some companies, believe it or not, that make that have a direct OEM replacement. I think Rocky Mountain has them. Literally has a like a I don't know if it's
Parts Unlimited sells them.
Yeah,
we have them, and Amazon. I've gotten Amazon starters for the 2-strokes because
you couldn't get the
OEM one's like $400. I've got an 08 300, and the OEM starter is extremely expensive, and they're prone to go out on that particular bike.
Right.
And I just throw a $40 Amazon starter in it every year or two, and
because there was a company like it was kind of like an All Balls or one of those companies,
Arrowhead.
It makes a replacement that make a starter. I would say if you haven't jacked with anything inside the cases, put the sprag gear on the wrong direction. Yeah. And do you know about the trick on the RFS bikes with when your sprag spring, the whole limited slip, that one way thing, when it goes bad, there's like a seal that you can buy because that bearing is like $100, and you can buy a $7 seal, and the spring is the exact same diameter, and you just put the spring from the seal on the outside of this.
Okay.
I know the part numbers. I have it written down someplace because that is that's like one of two things that'll go wrong in your RFS besides maybe the nut coming loose. Okay, Matt, one more question.
Did you see the one from Lowbrow about the 250 tranny?
Yeah, yes. we answered that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be from Jacob Coville. Let's see.
I called it answered. Even though we didn't give an answer.
Yeah.
I like to,
we talked about it.
Think highly of myself.
Yeah. So from Jacob Coville, just picked up the 2019 500 I sent earlier. The bike sat for 4 years and had only 200 miles. Ordered new fuel filters from talking about today. Also going to clean out the injector. Bike runs good with the exhaust, and the tuner could be better. Anything else I should look at from sitting for so long?
A 2019 500 sitting?
Yeah.
I mean, as long as it was sitting inside, you'd be surprised how much, sitting outside for a short amount of time can really do to a bike. I mean, just the standard, grease electrical connections, dielectric grease, your ignition plug, your key ignition plug, your starter button plug. Those get corrosion in them commonly, even if the bike's stored indoors.
Especially in moist environments,
but just washing the bike. Yeah. So just do that. That would be one additional thing. I would, on a 19, the ground on the subframe should be good. But those are always things I check and kind of retighten, loosen, retighten, even put a little dielectric grease, or even sometimes just WD-40 just to make sure all your connections are good. But no, I wouldn't do much. Fresh gas, you've already cleaned the injector, put a fuel filter. Hopefully you put the metal bodied fuel filter in, because even a brand new plastic filter is not something I would trust. We've switched over. Everybody knows about the
turkey filters.
Yeah, get rid of that piece and put it's a Napa filter. I forget what the number is.
Yeah, Takamoto sells these.
He's even got an upgraded one,
right?
But the standard replacement one is just an all metal body that won't split, because that's where you can really get screwed, is if the plastic body filter splits, you're dead in the water.
Yep.
So even a new one, because we had a number of those bikes when they were brand new, 17s, 18s, 19s, just split a filter at 3 hours and the bike won't run.
There must have been a bad run of those filters.
There must have been, but
it was a thing for a while where it was a really big deal, and then it just kind of stopped. And I have 25 of these bikes.
Yeah.
And I've had it happen twice on but they cracked in such a way that they just started losing power, and it wasn't the catastrophic like
for $20 you can ensure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Something else that was a weird kind of fad, or not a fad, but a rash of a problem that we saw early on when we started this shop. So this would have been 2012-ish. The spring retainers that go on the bottom of a PDS shock, they're aluminum, and there's a snap, you compress the spring, you put that thing on, and then there's a snap ring that goes, or
the metal ring that holds that retainer.
Well, over time, or just randomly, that aluminum retainer would just crack in half, and your spring goes all the way to the bottom, and the thing's a chopper all of a sudden. We saw quite a few of those happen. Matt had it happen to his own RFS bike back then. And it was happening so regularly. We contacted BRP and a few of the other manufacturers to see, is this something you guys would be interested in making? Machine shops that have, the ability to produce, good needed products. Nobody was interested in it. And we even talked to one of our buddies that worked in the aircraft industry, and we're going to have them made out of stainless. He actually made a handful of them out of stainless. I've still got one on my 950, but we didn't fortunately invest too much in that because the problem went away. I don't know if
interesting.
The ones that were going to break did break. And then, the rest have been okay.
That's one of the things I've never heard of. And it's funny, just the other day I saw a picture of a KTM chain block cracked, which there was a time when there was a cracking, and just different things. Every once in a while there's just a rash of parts, and now with the internet, this is the awesome thing about the internet is I don't have anything better to do at work, so I'm on the internet, and usually on one of the forums, and I see a picture of something bad happen, and then I take that picture and I say, look what happened, and I post it, and then that's the next
thing. That's where we got real world experience here. We do see different trends. We see certain things.
You might say, "Oh, yeah, we know this.
Right.
We
can verify that."
Yeah, usually when the part's in stock, you have the part in stock. It's like, we've seen this before. So, hey, Matt, why don't you go ahead and run us a set of commercials there? Tell everybody to check out our sponsors, and we'll be right back with Matt Lewis,
the defending champion, the all-new Yamaha YZ450F.
What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. What is the Taco Touch? It's the best service in the industry. Virtually 24/7 tech support via email or text, and it's like having a dirt bike doctor on call every day of the year, helping you fix your bike or recommend parts or setups for you. If you've ever received an order from us, you'll know that the Taco Touch extends to our fulfillment, and our orders come with the coolest stickers that you've ever had, buying parts from anybody before, and a handful of root beer barrel candies. All of our Taco Moto Co. branded components come with a no questions asked lifetime warranty, and we'll even extend out the warranty of other manufacturers, OEM, and aftermarket parts where we can, sometimes for life. We test and tune endlessly and exhaustively and obsessively. We're trying to destroy everything that we can before you get your hands on it to look for weaknesses and to improve it, or to make recommendations to the manufacturer. And if it's something that doesn't meet grade, then we don't offer it on the store. Everything that we carry is something that we have personally used, tested, and ridden, and raced, and knows meets the high Taco Touch demanding standard. Go out and get some adventure.
And we are back live on Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. And I just went into a low tide situation here. Hopefully this can be
Gonna have to get Tim to get you a new one.
Yeah, rectified quickly. So we kicked Tim off. He didn't do a very good Logan impression, but we're gonna check Matt for Logan impressions. You really have only listened to the show. You haven't really...
Yeah, I don't watch it that often just because we're usually working late and
Yep.
Usually go out to Taco Tuesday on Tuesday nights. So
that's a good place to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started the show at a bar during Taco Tuesday. That's kind of how the name came about. I think someone dared me to do a podcast. I don't know why, but it was a really bad idea, and here we are. So
yeah, 189 shows. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So Ben Mayberry, Mayberry, Mabry. There's no Mayberry. I'm horrible with names. So yeah. He says he has Husaberg questions. So those go to the front of the line.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you throw that Husaberg piston away? Because I could probably use it.
I don't think he threw it away. Do you want to? I think it's sitting right over here.
Yeah. So he says, "Hey Jimmy, I recently picked up a 2010 Husaberg FE390. Are there any must-do modification upgrades to do to this bike? It already has the subframe gas tank." Well, I'm just going to tell you that, let's see, 2010, I'm just counting the years.
That's the upside down backwards motor.
Right. So that's the FE390, a great bike because it's just because of Husaberg. The gas tank's going to start leaking pretty soon, probably at the mufflers, and your muffler's probably starting to fold in a little bit. So you might want to, hopefully you have the stock subframe, because I just had to put a stock subframe back on one of mine because my tank was compromised. But do you know how to weld that plastic?
The plastic. I don't. We've tried it in the past on certain things, and just we've never done it for a customer's bike just because of liability and all that stuff.
But welding, especially a gas tank, the plastic, because the plastic gets impregnated with stuff and it likes to burn more.
The gas seems to change the structure of the plastic kind of over the years.
Right. So I would say be prepared for that, Ben. I don't know, on the 390 could definitely use some power. It's basically a 400,
right?
Is what it is.
Right.
It's definitely no 570. Have I ever told you how fast my Husaberg 570 is?
Oh, never told me directly, but I hear it every week.
Yeah. It's not as fast as my 650, which is
I heard about that earlier
which
today,
is a ticking time bomb. Yeah, but I need to. I'm waiting for a little moisture to come back out of the sky and land on these hill climbs, because I want to upshift on the hill climbs. So, thanks Ben. Thanks for the question. And so John K asks, are the mall plastic fuel filters trash?
For the most part, yes. We've seen so many of them split over the many years that KTM has been using those, that we've gotten away from them. We now use an aftermarket all metal filter, same size, same filtration, everything like that, but no worry of splitting.
And you would see them because people would bring their bike in here. My bike doesn't run right. Something's wrong.
Yeah. We had a guy with a brand new bike one time that we set up, dialed in, did everything. I mean, he built it to the moon. Goes out on his first ride. I get a call on Saturday morning at 8:30 in the morning, and he's telling me he's pushing his bike, 10 miles from the truck, and wants to know why. Turned out that the fuel filter split on a brand new bike, brand new Husky 501.
And you hadn't done anything to the tank.
Had not done. I mean, we put a larger Turbie's tank or an IMS or something on it, but yeah, no, we had not. We pulled the fuel pump out, put it in the new tank.
Just pop the whole assembly in. Right. So. I wonder if, like, like I said, we were just talking about this before the break. The batches could be just a tad bit brittle. That maybe it was a batch that was a tad bit brittle. Any aggravation would be enough to.
Yeah, it might be the batch. It might be the glue that they use to glue them, because they have a seam on them that's like either glue or either plastic welded or fused or glued or something. And that seems to be where they always split.
And Mark Daniels is saying about our question on the starter. It says it sounds like he possibly had the starter solenoid wired backwards.
I mean, unless he messed with the wiring on it, then. Well, but even that wouldn't cause it to spin backwards. That would just cause the solenoid not to.
Well, that could blow the fuse.
It would blow the fuse, yes.
And that was one of his problems. It sounded.
I have heard stories from people buying those cheap starters. I've heard of one other starter with it that spun backwards once, and I don't remember what ended up causing it. Whether it was the magnets were just glued in the housing backwards, or what. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but I have heard of it one time over the many years.
Yeah, just buy the goods.
You don't have to buy OEM, but like the arrowheads are good. I don't know anything about the Rocky Mountain, the Tusk one, or whatever you were talking about.
I don't know if it was Tusk, but I remember there was some place where I got one time, basically because I don't know if it was the stock ones were ridiculously expensive or they were out of stock. Okay. And I'm just like, I kind of wanted to put this thing back.
The stock ones are generally ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. And it was so that was probably the thing. And then a lot of times I'll buy stuff that may be a little suspect or something just to test it. So I know, so I have an experience. Right. So when I do talk about this stuff on the show and everything, it's like, I do have some kind of experience with it.
And being an independent shop, we do a lot of aftermarket stuff, so we know what works and what doesn't generally, just because we sell OEM stuff, but we don't have the line on it like a KTM dealer does,
right? And then you're not getting it at a huge discount or anything like that.
So anytime we can use aftermarket, as long as it's good or better quality, then we generally do.
Replacement pistons, for instance. What do you use Pro X and stuff like that?
So we like Pro X, we like Vertex. Yep. We use a lot of those.
Wiseco?
We don't use too much Wiseco. I don't know why. We just never have. We do occasionally.
There was a time back in the day when they got a bad rap.
Right. Seizco and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I, and it's been a long time ago, but it's one of those things where I want to kind of try them again, because again, it could have just been a bad batch. And you think about it, like back then, so many people were replacing this stuff and doing all these things. Well, I know what kind of mechanics you guys are out in the real world, and you're doing it yourself, and you're putting the piston in backwards, and then it seizes, and then it's like, the piston's bad. It's like a two-stroke piston,
exactly.
Or actually, four-stroke ones too. Those they like to touch the.
Or back in the day of iron, sleeve cylinders and stuff, not getting them clearanced correctly and all that.
Right.
With cast pistons and things. But no, we generally use Vertex and Pro X and everything, or Wassners.
Yep.
They're all good pistons. But what we found is on like the 250 and 350s, KTM Husky gas, every time we put a Vertex piston in or Pro X, because they use those 3-piece oil rings. They use a different oil ring than the OEM KTM piston. For whatever reason, we see that they tend to burn oil. Like even
really low hours, and you'll fire it up and you'll get, it'll sit there and idle, and you flip the throttle and it'll puff smoke. And so we've kind of gone away from, on the smaller bore engines, we pretty much stick with OEM only.
Right. And what is the OEM on the small KTM?
They've changed over the years. They were CP pistons for quite a while. And they still may be, but they've gone from Mall and CP back and forth. And then I know the 2-strokes all use Vertex pistons.
Yep. And I think I've put Pro X pistons in some 2-strokes and had good luck with them.
Yeah, we use Pro X all the time on the 2-strokes.
I've replaced rods on the 2-strokes with, my
Pro X rods are top of the line.
Yeah, my 200 I've done like 2 or 3 times because that thing had a shit ton. I mean, it was I don't remember, 2004, and it's the bike I used to set up every King of the Motos course. And again, it got to the point where I could start feeling it when it started running really good. Like it just pre-revved up a little too good. Usually after about 3 pistons. And I had really good luck with those. And I think I have one in my YZ125 currently, and lots of good stuff. Okay, Matt, do we have another question here?
Yeah, you want from the sheet or the chat?
Yeah, from the sheet. You know what? Go to the chat first, because let's get those guys are there live.
Well, I like what Travis Bickle said. He commented, influencers, man, no kidding, was parked next to one of those guys, and he was on his gram posting about the pipe and cylinder he was given and how sick it was. Then he came over to me and asked me to help him adjust his chain. Josh K said you have to go below the equator for the starter to spin the correct way. Mark Daniel said they had a CRF 450X that was backwards on the solenoid, and it caused the starter to spin backwards. It was installed by the owner incorrectly.
So I like that's where we started going down this thing, is like, hey, what if you just pulled the starter out because it didn't work and popped it right back in? That's one thing, but then was it a full rebuild, and where did all these pieces come from? That usually makes a big difference.
Right. So let's go back to the sheet here. So this was the email said GGGG, didn't get a name. So question for Jimmy. I once saw XR650R with the turbocharger on YouTube. Would turbo supercharging a single cylinder take place of a heavy second cylinder, or is the torque and reliability of the twin why this hasn't been done by a factory OEM?
Boy. Wait, it started out with, I saw this on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it was, and it was just like for content. I don't think they're just kind of like fun question.
So yeah. So I've seen, never. Have I seen one in person? I think I have at the sand dunes and stuff. I've seen a lot of contraptions where people have rigged up turbos and superchargers and all this crazy stuff. On the 4-stroke motorcycle, especially the single-cylinder 4-stroke motorcycle, which is designed to be light and compact and agile, though those aren't usually words that are associated with XR650.
Yeah.
You're dealing with just trying to build a good package that's simple, lasts a long time. On that bike for sure lasts a long time is a big part of it, and adding a turbo to it, I don't think it was a thing. Then you're going to deal with turbo lag. Single cylinder turbo lag is kind of,
and tons of exhaust heat.
Yeah,
crazy amounts of heat
build
up. And just longevity of the motor is going to be compromised quite a bit.
Right, and so it's easier just to bolt a cylinder to the side of it. I mean, not really bolt a cylinder, but build
in the design process, it's easier to design it as a twin.
Yeah, make it something that starts out with power, and even like a lot of the adventure bikes are really, really low stressed. I mean, as far as their configurations, because some of them come from platforms that were, meant for much higher performance on road going stuff, and then they kind of tune them down for torque and everything, and they're pretty low stress, and they still make. I mean, a rear tire can only handle so much power, so.
Right, that's the other thing is with turbos, you get a big old spike of, as soon as that turbo kicks in, you get a spike and you're going to get wheel spin.
But they should put a KERS system on it so it actually keeps it running the whole time, and that requires an extra battery and then a way to generate some power.
Then they got to run,
a couple big
generate
wires
power through the brakes or something, and
Yeah, but if you only rode it downhill, but wait, no, we want to drag race them up hills. Yeah, okay. Hey, Chris Dabney says, try Marine Tech and it's epoxy at West Marine. It holds up to gasoline.
I've used that on boat stuff before. Yeah, it's like a putty that like a 2-part epoxy. Not sure, never heard of it used on a gas tank though.
It's used on it's to seal, not a gas tank.
No, not necessarily. It's to seal, other fiberglass hole, small holes in the hull of your boat. And
it's funny
because
I've seen that mentioned before also in some of these gas tank, especially, when you're part of these Husaberg owners groups that, are looking, because guys were actually sealing up the stock subframes and turning them into gas tanks before
that's what I
the
heard
70-degree racing tanks came around. And so, yeah, I've heard that. So, yeah, Chris, I might give that a try because I do have one that's just sitting there ready for some science experiments. And so, and I'm seeing some of my, my RFS tanks get the kind of the spider, the cracks in them and everything like that. And I just wonder if one of those things cracks, is there a way you're going to be able to kind of, keep it working?
Yeah, not when they get those spider cracks, because they just let loose all of a sudden. Had a buddy out in the desert have that go all the way out to the desert one day, and we get there and this bike is just drenched in fuel, and the tank was all spider cracked and just let go.
Yeah, you wonder, it's at that point you're like, what I mean, what are you gonna at that point? What are you gonna do? I mean, because usually those are 20-year-old tanks,
right?
We have, with the heat, we have so much heat out in the desert, and some of the bikes are in shipping containers, and there's probably 150 degrees inside those things.
Well, just the heat from that the motor underneath of it's producing.
Yeah, and Mark Daniel says that stuff will work on some gas tanks, but not all. Can be used in the field for an emergency repair. I'm looking for lifelong repairs. So, okay, another question, Matt?
Yeah, so from Josh Kropachak. Let's see. Could you ask Jimmy to compare the T7 to when he test rode Peter Hansel's Yamaha Works Nevada rally bike? How would they compare head to head today?
Interesting. Boy, you know what? In all honesty, I remember Peter. I have to go back because at that point I really hadn't ridden many twin cylinder, off-road or dirt bikes or anything. So that thing felt pretty big and massive, especially with the Dakar style tanks and everything on it. I think that the T7, and I know that T7 was really designed by Yamaha France and built, kind of, they built it the way they want it. And those guys that built it, I'm sure, had ridden that bike and had some experience with it. I want to say that the T7 would actually feel lighter and more nimble and agile than that bike. And we've learned so much about chassis development.
And how long ago was that Peter Hansel bike? It had to have been 20 years ago.
Oh, it was before 2000. It was let's see, it was 90, it had to be 96.
I mean, just the advancements
95
in chassis development that they've had and suspension and everything else.
Yeah.
A production bike today is probably as good or better than Jeremy McGrath's CR250 in his heyday.
I rode that bike, and it was one of the worst motorcycles I've ever ridden, ever, because it was set up to do everything that I don't like. And I mean that thing, you want to talk about hitting like it had a turbo on it? That thing felt like it just went da 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 da, brah, and it was meant to launch from zero to outer space.
Right.
And the stiffest fork I'd ever ridden. And that's a good analogy. But I would say, like you said, I didn't even realize it was that long ago that I rode that thing. I remember riding that thing. I know exactly where I rode that thing. And because on that day I rode both the 660 single cylinder that Peter Hansel rode, and then JCO, who's the in charge boss of Yamaha France, was riding Peter Hansel's Dakar bike in the Nevada rally, and I got to ride them afterwards. And but yeah, just it's so funny that you can, like, the Harley Davidson Pan American.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about a big, heavy, lump of lead essentially, which is
right.
and I mean
that's typical for Harley.
That's the words of endearment for Harley. It's not mean. But you hop on that bike and then you ride it and you go, wow, it's actually pretty agile for what it is. And it's amazing that they've been able to figure out how to position cranks and certain things and get certain flex characteristics that take away a lot of the weight feel. So yeah, big change in design for sure. So any other ones over there?
Questions, let's go for another one that was in the chat for last week. It was I don't know where the name went, but have a 2015 Super Adventure 1290 set up for off-road with a 1090R front and rear suspension. Do you know the resistor valves to fuel the ECM to think the stock electronic suspension is in place? I'm sick of the fault codes. Also, I did this because I needed the 30-liter fuel tank here in Labrador.
Okay, so he took the street version 1290, not the S version, not the R, and put the R suspension on it.
Okay.
That I've never heard of anyone doing. We don't have any. I don't know of any dongle or anything like that to plug in to make it not throw a code.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. I mean, once you start getting into this electronics, especially the CAN bus system, which by the way, KTM information has been dropped on KTM's 24, EXC, XCW, XW. They have they have some new names. Of course, KTM throwing new letters at stuff.
Right.
One of the things that I'm curious about, and it'll be interesting because we're sitting here and we're going to talk about your bike in a moment, is all the electronics. They went to CAN bus system.
Right. They've had that. That's been out for quite a while. But
right. On the adventure.
Right.
On the adventure side of things, not really on the
well, they do have sort of a CAN bus system on the dirt bikes. Yeah. It's not anywhere near as sophisticated though.
It's on there because emissions. It's just the next level of compliancy is going to require them to be able to program certain things, to monitor certain things in a different way without having relays strapped all over the bike and essentially less wires. It already has about the most minimum amount of wires, but that and the other thing. So back to the question, I don't know how I mean, how would you find the, like he says, resistor values? Or
I mean, you would have to have, being that we're not a KTM dealer, I don't get to go to any of those schools anymore. That would be one place you could possibly find it. When we were with the dealer, I went to all the initial EFI trainings and things, and I have a book full of stuff of different, what sensor values need to be what they ohm out at and all that. But that's the only way I would ever figure out to do it, is if you if you knew somebody on the inside that could get you that information.
Provide you with that info
of what resistor values they would need. And the new CAN bus systems are just incredible, because it'll probably even know that, hey, you just put a resistor in line, it'll probably still throw a code.
I know with the emissions side of things, because this is what people are doing. They're putting dongles and all this stuff on it. Like that worked a few years ago, but now if that thing isn't constantly changing its reading,
it has to constantly if it's a static reading, it will throw a code eventually.
It says, no, you're faking me. You can't be perfect all the time.
Right.
So I'm sure somebody's going to come up with some sort of a resistor that varies the reading back, or some variable reading something. I know I'm not a electronologist or something like that, and I don't play one on this podcast, but and he says, I also did this because I needed 30-liter fuel tank here in Labrador.
That's like northeastern Canada, I believe.
Oh, it is?
It's like an island off of the coast of Canada, I believe.
Hey,
I'm not a geography major, but
okay. I just figured he invented his own country named after his dog.
I think that's where they come from.
Okay. Yeah, that could make sense. Why do you need a 30-liter fuel tank? They don't have any gas stations there either?
They might not. Might be far and few between.
I heard they only live underground most of the year, and they have little beady eyes and they can't come up because it's too bright. So maybe he's riding his motorcycle around underground there. So good on you. Hopefully we helped out with that question. Is there any more in that group, Matt?
Just a question of, do you think the YZ from Ben Sharko, do you think the YZ 450 FX could easily be made into a decent dual track / trail bike?
Decent dual track trail bike.
Like a dual sport bike, or
I think like moto. I think like moto, off road, and maybe trail riding.
Okay.
I don't know. I think dual track means 2-track in trail bike, and if of all the 450s, and this was this comment on one of our 450 videos.
Yeah.
And did he ask this in my expert level opinion video?
No, he asked in my intermediate level opinion. Intermediate trail rider.
Intermediate trail rider level opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say of those 4 bikes, the YZ is the only one that would go into like the 2-track, just because of the transmission, the wide ratio transmission. Because any of the other ones, really when you're on the 2-track road, you're going to want to be doing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, at least sometimes. And in order to do that on the other bikes, you're just revving their nuts out. Where Yamaha, you're revving it a little bit, but not nearly as much. But if you gear the Yamaha up, it still has a lower first gear that'll accept this. With all the other bikes, if you start gearing them up, you're going to run into a very, very tall first gear. Not that they don't have the power to pull it, but if you ever wanted to do something slower, I don't think you're going to be happy with where everything starts out. So yeah, that's I would it really, if you're looking at at more of a 2-track bike, that's when you start going to EXC,
right,
XCW, yeah, bikes that have the wider transmissions, wide ratio transmissions, stock, because that's really the big advantage there. If you're it's all compromises at this point when you're building these kind of bikes. So okay, that's it for our questions.
Yep. Did you want to go into Rooster Endo?
Let's go into Rooster Endo. You want to do Rooster Endo?
Yeah, I'm already set up here, so
okay. Hey,
go for it.
Before we start with Rooster Endo, Matt, and the way we watch this is we are gonna watch it on the Zoom thing. You're gonna pop the pictures up there.
Yep, you'll be seeing it on the Zoom call.
Matt has our Bulletproof Designs product of the week, or information of the week, that he wanted to let everybody know about.
So we just wanted to let everybody know that Dunlop tires right now is running a pretty aggressive rebate on tires, on specifically the Geomax brand, MX33, MX53, AT81s, for certain dealers. We're considered a pro dealer from Dunlop, and you have to be a brick and mortar store. You can't sell them online, things like that. They're trying to help the small guys like us by giving us special incentives. Basically, if you buy a tire through one of the pro dealers, doesn't have to be us, could be any of their pro dealers, until the end of June, you get $25 off, or not off, but a rebate card per tire that you buy. So it's a pretty good aggressive deal. We're stocked up on them for this deal. But again, you can go to any brick and mortar Dunlop pro dealer to get it, and they're great tires and great deal right now.
So what's Matt saying is, come to Inside Line Moto and get a set of Dunlop tires for $50 off. You'll get it says a prepaid MasterCard.
Yeah, prepaid MasterCard. They've been running it for a few months now, and it ends June 30th. And you have till then to grab them.
Okay, hopefully from this show, all your tires will be gone tomorrow.
That'd be great. I'll just order a bunch more.
Yeah, line right in front of the door here. The 30,000 people that are, even the guy in Canada is going to dig his way out from underneath the ground and come down here to get his Dunlop tires. So, okay, Matt, are we ready with Rooster Endo?
Yes, we are. All right, first submission here is going to be from Brendan Springer Davis. This is a 2019 300 XCW. It's backlit and proudly equipped with the complete line of Jimmy Lewis Signature Series protection products by Bulletproof Designs. This bike is most fun to
see how they start playing to the sponsors. They think they're they're gonna overshoot the semi low quality of the photo.
Yeah.
I want to see
to
the
brighten up the screen on your computer there.
really that is my screen on my computer is this horrible photo. I'm adjusting here.
Yeah.
Um.
So there's more. There's more here.
Okay.
So Tusk Recon tires. He has the Kendatrack Master DOTs, and they also work great. A Cherubies tank and frame gripper guards. They get ECU with Slavens Racing base maps. FMF exhaust system, Cycra probe and handguards, tugger straps, bar and fender packs, and I can't remember that brand either. Dingo fork guards. Jimmy may have convinced me to add some Fastco flex bars and pegs, KTM skid plate, overpriced heat shield for the pipe, sick ass racing street legal horn and light kit, Polysport engine and swing arm guards, Scott steering stabilizer.
You didn't mention the front disc guard, did he?
Nope.
He did mention a bunch of Bulletproof Designs guards.
Yeah,
he did specifically.
So speaking of that, not that I like to rub the bear the wrong way. I'm looking at your bike right here, and you've got a really nice golden. It looks really similar to the one in this.
It is. It's a very heavy duty, well made product.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you don't. I know you're not a fan of them, but you just don't hit the rocks like us normal riders do.
So have you ever bent a disc rotor before on rocks?
Personally, I can't say that I have on the front.
My case closed.
But
it just in case,
right? Just in case. You never know.
Okay. Hey Tim, I think I'm going to need another beer here for this one. What did he say about that seat cover?
I can't.
It's funny because I think
it looks like it's got like a.
Well, it's like it looks like it has a hump on
it,
but I think that's actually the mountain in the background that's growing out of his seat.
Yeah.
It looks like he put he looks like he put a sideways hump in it or something.
Right.
Looks a little bit awkward. It's a
fender bag on the front is definitely taken away from his headlight. Hope he's not riding it dark at all.
Yeah, I got on a guy about this last week, and then they weren't happy with my thing. It's a lot of weight up in the front. The bike, yeah, it's hard to see, and it's not my computer screen. I know it's not that good of a computer. I'm going, boy, I kind of like that it's ridden. And,
right, at least it's in a good backdrop and everything.
Yeah, it's used. So, it's out there.
I mean, I got to give him a Roost, especially for that front disc guard.
Yeah, the fact that he was willing to show his disc guard in public, like to me, I mean that takes some balls. So yeah, I'm gonna go Roost with this one as well, Matt. What do you think, Matt? This is Matt, the other Matt Mattoon.
Matt and Vegas,
the intermediate.
Okay. Yeah.
Is he digital to you too?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's just. I wonder if that's just us.
It's gonna be
that's better.
Yeah.
I think this one's kind of like a soft Roost for me, just because of where he's riding it. He's using it.
He followed the instructions, right?
Yeah, he followed them to a T. So this one's a soft Roost for me.
Okay. So it's a triple Roost. Doesn't mean much. We give away $100 gift certificate from Taco Moto. That's tacomoto.co. They have all kinds of stuff. So he could get a graphics kit for that bike, even though it wouldn't make it look any better in that photo. Next.
All right, up next is going to be from Michael Cox.
Oh boy, is it backlit night tonight?
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, built as a single bike for Forest Roads 2-track and single track in the Pacific Northwest.
What kind of bike are we looking at?
Ooh, doesn't really mention it here.
Right. Okay.
That's 20. It says in the subject line, 2020 KTM 500 EXEF.
Right.
Slavens Racing, racing springs for full figured male. Takamoto tuned Power Commander 5 with map switch. Takamoto 3000 hour pump. Takamoto 225 hour filter. Desmogged, reeds removed, recluse, clutch dampeners. Takamoto multi-purpose switch. Moto-minded bomber, start slop. Dango designs, engine mounts, trail jammer, case guards, Promoto build exhaust end cap, ultra quiet, fastway pegs, Bolt aluminum fuel 90, CPC fuel quick disconnect, Gulen fuel filter, Seat Concepts comfort seat, a Cherubies 3.9 tank with breather, ODI Rogue grips, Enduro Engineering Extreme skid plate, Enduro Engineering radiator guards, Enduro Engineering case saver, KTM power parts rear disc guard, bulletproof chain guide protector, Dirt Tricks countershaft washer, Dirt Tricks rear sprocket. So it's a 1348.
He should have been running the DDC.
Cycra Pro Bend guards and bar taps, 30 millimeter bar risers, giant loop trail rack, Ramex mount foam mount, Garmin Montana 650 double take mirror, DIY grab strap front and rear, Moto's mountain hybrid rear, Golden Tire 216 XX fatty front, DIY license plate mount, Osnium micro LED rear signals, and Baja Designs XL Pro Moto minded mount, which is not in the picture.
Do you ever get the impression that
Well, you can't claim something when it's not in the picture, can you?
Well, we don't cut them any slack here. But that list almost sounds as if the bike's for sale.
Right. That list took a while to type out.
Yeah. Does he list the price, Matt?
Does not list the price.
Doesn't list the price. Okay, just checking. And he's angled the tire in a very precarious way, as almost like when I see the tire straight at the camera like that, it's trying to hide a disc protector.
Yeah, I don't see one on there.
But I'm smart. I go to the shadow. I go down to the shadow, and I don't see it either. So, horrible photo. You're going to get dinged for the photo. The list was too long. I think on some of these descriptions, I kind of want a little more creativity in the thing. So not only am I going to start complaining about the backlit photos, and by the way, you went all the way down to the slick rocks of Moab or someplace way out of the Pacific Northwest to take that photo. It needs boobies or something like that to make it more interesting. So I'm going Endo on this particular one. And he's claiming extra headlight that's not on there.
Right. I'm going to do an Endo just because of that. You can't say that you've got a part on the bike that clearly is not on the bike in the picture.
Yeah.
So either this is a really old picture of the bike, or he's just trying to add parts on that.
He seemed like he had a lot of parts, but that's good. Okay. Next, Matt. Or you? Oh, go ahead. You can vote.
This one's a Roost for me. Soft Roost.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I just want to be I just need to be a contrarian here.
The other Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
All right, so this next one's gonna be Greg. Let's see, was it Sambrowski?
He should have had flex handlebars in that thing. I'm just saying.
Change this around. Here we go.
Oh boy,
Greg Sambrowski.
All right.
Okay,
what is going on here?
This show straight up has some character.
Right.
I don't care about this is where
is this like a magazine ad or something? Something you'd see.
It looks like, what would you be advertising there if you did?
A couch.
No, yeah,
it'd be some sort of gear ad or something.
The problem is this could be this guy's house. He could actually have a nice outdoor scene, in his house. That's the side.
I'm thinking it's more almost a green screen behind him.
No, it looks pretty legit. I like the Climb gear. Thanks for supporting our sponsors there. Okay, go ahead. Hit us with the bike. It's what year KTM 500 is it?
It's like a 2012 KTM 500 EXC.
Yeah. How do we guess this?
Blias Racing ECU flash, STS suspension springs plus valving, SKF wheel bearing front and rear kit, 90-degree fuel vent, taco fork wrap blinkers, Molecule Motorsports skid plate, a Cherubies 5.3 gallon fuel tank, Trailtech Voyager, Wisco piston plus rings at 500 hours.
So do you think that when he wheelied up into there, the header was hot and it burned a hole in the back of his nice couch?
Wonder how many tries it took.
I could do that in one try.
Well,
he looks pretty relaxed. Looks pretty pro. I don't know if
he says he's got. It sounds like he actually rides it quite a bit. He's got over 500 hours on it.
Yeah.
I got to give him a little bit of a Roost just for that.
I kind of would want to ride there too. It looks like you could get pretty cattywampus
Looks
out
like
there in the forest.
you'd want a 250 2-stroke or something, 300 in that.
Yeah, 300 would be nice, but I mean, he's also got the big ass tank too.
Right.
So he's taking the wrong bike for the right purpose. Roost. I just like the photo. I think they took some.
It's not the same as it's not the everyday submission.
The standard backlit photo with
Right.
out the stuff. Yeah, bike's ridden hard, put away wet. Looks like it. That's a nice couch though. It doesn't look really that bad to be out in the forest like this. So, okay, what are you thinking, Matt?
Yeah, I think this is a Roost. I really like this photo. Really
Yeah.
fun. Although it looks like he has snowboarder goggles on.
But is there something wrong with this?
Could be. Okay.
Yeah. I used to have pro grip goggles with that rounded. They were really good goggles. They had a curved arced lens to them. Really good in the dunes.
All right, up next is going to be from Mike Pearson. 2016 500 EXC G2 handguards FMF Taco ASSI relay kit. Taco provided TT mount goods, waiting on the Trailtech Voyager Pro, tie detail, various protection from Polysport, G80 tuner, TBT suspension, stealth drive goods, a chair booster 0.1 gallon tank, E-line fork guards.
E-line fork guards. Oh, I see. Upper on the on the top, not the lowers, but the
and this picture's out of
protecting the sliders.
Yeah,
it's out of focus. That's not just your setup there on the. On the screen.
It's kind of zoomed in a lot.
Oh yeah, it's probably out of focus.
It's out of focus. Like looking at the flag, the font on the flag's out of focus.
Okay. Say it would have been nice to take the bike out in the scenery and get a nice picture of it out there. He's got to clean up the workbench there a little bit. Good thing he's stocked up with water in the case of emergencies. Back to the bike. Kind of standard issue to me.
Yeah, it's nothing super special. He didn't even mention that it's a 6 days either.
Oh, yeah. Extra special 6 days edition. What year? Where's that from?
That is, I can't remember what year. What?
Italy? Holland?
Czech?
No, I don't remember.
Czech Republic?
I can't remember what.
2016?
What?
2016. Oh, jogging my memory. I can't remember. Not Australia. No. Yeah. The bike didn't make it out of the garage.
I'm just gonna have to say an Endo, for the background and just kind of not.
I like the American flag.
I do like that.
Like the Navy flag. Good. Probably served or as a kid that's serving. That's good. Yeah, but didn't go. I mean, and then we're gonna find out that we're picking on him because there's 6 feet of snow outside, and if you open up the garage door, it collapsed in, so he couldn't take the bike out. That kind of thing. But yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I mean, it's a nice bike. I'd like to go ride it and everything, but American pride there. Look, he's even got it on the fridge. He's got the American flag on the fridge. I'm liking the America. I'm into it. I'm going Roost solely for that. And the bike does have red, white, and blue in it.
Yeah, but it's not American red, white, and blue.
No, but
it's Slovakia.
Slovakia.
Josh in the chat said Slovakia.
Okay.
This one's an Endo for me. Out of focus picture.
Oh yeah, but American flag, bro. You can't go wrong. I mean, I'm sure all the Australians are going, why is he so patriotic? Because they all want to move up here and get cheap dirt bikes, stuff like this. So yeah, it's a standard issue bike, but yeah, he's selling it to me with the flag. So we have one more, or that's it?
We got one more to go here, so let me get it up here. The last Rooster Endo of the night. Gotta get the list up for me to read it. The last one's gonna be from
some music.
Yeah. All right, this is gonna be Paul Cusack. 2018 350 EXCF custom Pro Circuit exhaust, Recluse hammerhead pegs, Scott's steering dampener, a Cherubies tank, Taco 90-degree fitting, Baja Designs light.
I wonder if Matt's going crazy digital for only us or everybody. Does anybody in the chat say that you sound like a space alien?
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, it sounds good.
Sounds good now, but yeah, just a minute ago.
Yeah, you're doing crazy stuff. We're gonna have to tune up this system we got here, Matt. This looks like a nice bike. Is it in the cornfield?
I really like the colors of this one.
Yeah, it kind of looks like some sort of cornfield or something.
Cornfield underneath power lines. I'm looking at the hills in the background. I wonder if they're just like that golf course, just rolling green grass hills, like Mongolia. Yeah. They say all grass, no stones, mowed by the animals. Right. And the ground looks a little bit sandy. Looks pretty good.
It's a fairly well set up bike.
Yeah. What was his exhaust system? Did he say?
Custom Pro Circuit exhaust.
Custom Pro Circuit exhaust. Yeah, it looks different. You know what? I bet you it's custom because I wonder if he's taking like SX,
like a 450 SX or a 350 SX,
something like that to
exhaust.
Yeah, get it tuned up there. I'm kind of liking the bike. I think it's Roost. I
think it's a Roost. Yeah.
I'm not.
I like the picture. I like the background. It's just.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I mean, he tried at least. I don't like all the power lines in the photo. That was always like a big no. It was power. Having power lines in a photo. But yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm going with Roost. I mean, it's not a KTM 500.
That's true.
What was
loses a few points for that?
Was every other bike a KTM 500?
I think they were.
Most of them were. No, this one was a 350.
Oh yeah, this is a 350. Oh, there was one 300. There was one.
Oh, there was a 3. The first one was a 300. That's right.
Because that's. I feel like I just looked at 5 KTM 500s,
right?
Which kind of happens sometimes in Rooster Endo. These because when Matt posts this up on the chat, we're looking for the Rooster Endo submissions. It kind of goes on to the Taco Moto page, which of course this is where you have the fan base for this segment. Of course, we're giving away a Taco Moto gift certificate for $100. I am going to turn it over to you guys and let you guys kind of make your picks on who gets it, who you think gets it, and then I'll see if I need to come in and override. I kind of have an idea, I think, but I've almost lost track of the photos. Is there a document someplace, Matt, where I can see these photos all at once? Or we don't have this currently?
I can get it to you. You're going to have to do a lot of scrolling on it.
Oh, boy.
You have to scroll to the bottom on this document that I just shared with you.
Okay. There we go. I'll dig up this thing. So what were you thinking, Matt from Inside Line Moto?
Kind of thinking the couch photo, just because of the originality of it, and it's a 2012, so the guy could use some money for some extra parts and things for it.
Right.
So
we can't. Yeah, we definitely can't deny that he did some. He was at least creative with his photo. Go ahead, Matt Mattoon. What's your take?
Couch photo, not even close.
Yeah, just because of the photo.
Yeah. Couch photo.
Creative.
Well, and the same reason that other Matt said, like, it's a 12. Could use some stuff, and he clearly rides that bike.
Over couches.
Over couches, yeah, it's not quad.
Right.
So do you know that what we're going to get because of this is next week we're going to have
It's gonna be vintage bike week.
No, it's gonna be a bunch of guys with bikes on couches.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's like, hey, we figured out what won. I was literally gonna pick. I don't know if it was the 300. It might have been the 300, but I'm gonna agree with you guys. I'm gonna go with the super relaxed guy on the couch because and that's what's the guy? Is it Greg or is it no?
Yeah, Greg, right?
Greg.
12,500. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Greg's. Greg was the winner, right? Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, that's gonna be a Greg. Let me pull up his name again. Greg Samborski.
Samborski.
Borski. There we go. Not
Borski.
Borski.
He's got a Wiseco piston, and maybe he could tell us how his Wiseco piston is doing.
Yeah,
we'd asked that early.
So Sam, if you're listening, reach out to.
What did he say? He said Samco or Wiseco piston at 500 hours.
500 hours.
So how many hours is he at now? I wonder.
Right. That's a good.
501 or is he at 800?
or is his bike needing a gasket set? And he's got all the
top end still off of it. That's why he's got it pictured like that.
Dressed up, threw the bike on the couch. Got $100 off his next purchase over at Takamoto. But thanks again to Takamoto and everybody for joining in and supporting us in this quest to find the world's worst photo of your bike that you're trying to get $100 back out of. And it just goes to show that sometimes a photo can make a big difference in how we perceive this this contest. So Matt, onto your bike.
Okay. What do we want to know about it?
Well, so let's describe your bike quickly.
Well, it has a front discard on it.
We already got it. We're not going to.
Do you really want to know anything else about it?
We're not going to dwell on it. We talked about how the front discard was nicely modified.
Yeah.
So you can get the fork pinch bolts, which I think is a big deal because I know on the one that I have to use an open end wrench to get in there, or box end wrench.
Bulletproof has since changed their design. That's the older design. They've since changed it to mimic that. If you see the new ones up on the shelf up front,
right?
So, but they're still not made to fit the cone valve fork, so that took quite a bit more modifications.
Yeah. So when you went out to get the tacos, we started your bike multiple times, and it starts
every time.
Starts right up.
Well, it's in its home right now.
Right. We pushed a lot of different buttons in different ways, the different kill switches.
Right.
Played around with the key. So gnarly canyon.
Yeah.
Just stop down there, shut the bike off.
And shut the bike off, waiting for everybody to, kind of catch their breath and whatnot. Didn't even turn the key off, just hit the kill button. And that was it. That was the last time she wanted to start that day. Ended up me and a couple buddies pushing it for about a mile and then hooking it up to a tow strap back to the truck. It's kind of put my tail between my legs and,
So on that day, you were that guy.
I was that guy that day.
I fully understand. I've been that guy many times.
And being the owner of the shop, with all my buddies and everything, definitely can understand the amount of, just, I wouldn't say hate, but,
No, it's not hate, but
not hate, but ridicule.
So bike stops working and it's like, okay. And like when you asked me when I walked in, like, hey, what would you think? And I said relays. And you said that was the first thing you went to check.
Done it. That was one of the very first things.
Yeah. So switch the relays around.
Right. Because there's a few relays in there that are not so critical, and there's one or two that are critical. So switched them all around and no change.
So when you're pushing on the starter, it's starting and turning over. The reason
it's cranking, yeah.
The reason I'm deep diving into this is we had a guy last week on the show. I wish he was in there because I was hoping he'd kind of found out what his problem was. And so you changed the relays, didn't change the problem. You're still not getting the fuel pump to kick in.
Right.
Turns over, doesn't start. Then what was the next thing you did?
I started with the basics, the relays, checking all the grounds, obviously, because that's what everybody says to do. And we've seen that be a problem on many bikes coming through the shop, that for whatever reason, especially with the lithium batteries, it seems to be a bigger problem than with the old lead acid batteries, that the grounds have to be absolutely perfect for the bike to run. So none of that was the issue.
But usually when the ground isn't connected, the starter doesn't turn
usually
over.
When it's not a perfect ground, the starter will not turn over, or it'll be really weak, because the starters obviously take quite a bit of amperage to turn. Went from there, just started swapping parts. I swapped tanks with because the fuel pump wasn't kicking on. So my buddy on a KTM 450 XCF took his tank off, put it on my bike. Nothing, no fuel pump.
And the good thing about those things is the tank swap in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's really easy with the quick connect fuel filter or fuel lines and stuff. After that swap, I had a minor tip over earlier in the morning. Said, okay, maybe it's my rollover switch has gone south. Swapped that with the bike.
Hey, I think KTM has a new marketing person. I was telling Tim about this earlier, because they released the 2024 Supermoto bike, and one of the features is a tip over switch.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been on pretty much every
it's been on every fuel injected bike
for a long time, and they decided that they would tout that as a thing, and like when is this a new feature or something that we should really? Oh, this is great. I mean, maybe if they had a racing one, you could actually turn on or off or something like this, because a lot of race bikes do not have them because they don't want them to turn off.
Right, because it's one more piece to fail.
Right.
So yeah, obviously that wasn't bad. I popped the headlight, checked all the ignition wires, everything you could think of on the trail. And then I got to the point where I said, you know what, I'm gonna start taking, I needed a piece of wire to try jump the fuel pump off the battery to get it running. So I cut out one of my taillight wires just to use as a piece of wire, to figure out, and got the fuel pump kicked on. It was running, still nothing, no crank. So that's when we basically
it would crank.
It would crank. I mean, it would crank, but not start. Yeah,
but not start. And this is interesting because this is
with the fuel pump running, and
so you would suspect that it should at that point work.
You would hope that it would, but
you found out why in a certain sense, right?
Found out why here back at the shop after just doing some deep dive into it, and found out that the fuel pump ground actually goes through the ECU. So when you power it directly to the battery, the fuel pump, it no longer grounds through the ECU correctly, and therefore the ECU doesn't sense that the fuel pump's on, so it doesn't allow the bike to spark.
Yeah.
So,
and this is where I like it. You have a good mechanic that knows, okay, here's a couple different things to try. And I've heard of people trying to jump the fuel pump. Just a lot of times they just
well, it's common to do it. Like I know Moto sells a fuel pump,
the
jump kit to transfer fuel. Which that's all fine and dandy, but the bike will not run with that.
Correct. Yeah. So now we know this. Right. So that's not going to solve the problem. So we were starting to talk about something else, and this is what I had suspected potentially on the guy's bike last week was that one of the very small, delicate little wires on the wiring harness, which is, you want a super light bike, you're going to get super light wires. And you guys have experienced this before, where the outer sheathing on the wire looks fine, but somehow the inside's been pinched.
We've done broken. It. We've had bikes come through here, especially right there at the steering head, where the wire harness constantly is in a state of motion every time you turn the bars back and forth. And we've had guys with similar problems. Bike quit running, can't get it running, brings it to us. And we found multiple. I mean, we've had a guy's bike where I've had to replace or repair 6-7 wires in that bundle, that you can't tell they're broken when you cut the sheathing away. But we take a heat gun and just put a little bit of heat to the wire, and as you tug it, it just pulls right apart because the copper strands have broken inside, but the actual insulation of the wire is still holding it together.
And on this, I would like to say that last week I think I misspoke, because I thought that the we'll call it the fuel injection side, ignition side of that wiring harness was the inexpensive one.
No,
but it's the real expensive one.
it's
the
the
lighting.
real
It's the
expensive
lighting
one, yeah.
side.
The lighting side, which
is,
controls basically your lights, your turn signals, your headlight, tail light.
That's an inexpensive.
And that plugs into the main harness, and that is a relatively inexpensive, about $100 or something. But the main harness on this particular bike, a KTM 450 500 EXC, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $450,
right?
For a wire harness.
Hence, it would be a lot easier to chase it down. But since you're started, either if one of those wires is broken, they're touching back together now,
right?
Or
maybe it was just in your presence, it just wanted to.
I scared it into starting.
Yeah, because I spent a few minutes today on it, and by golly, it started right up and
then
runs,
we started and stopped it,
perfect.
Stopped it, and I'm gonna go with the like you said, the wiring thing. The bike's way too new to have that really happening, but you never know. There could be a batch, and
and like you said, just the tiny. I mean, they're like 24 gauge wire, I believe, is what they're using nowadays.
How many little strands of copper do you think are in there? Like
not 8? Many. Yes, 8, 10. Yeah, not very many.
And it really wouldn't take much. You think about it. You could just kind of maybe one time drop the tank down and hit the wiring harness, and it gives it a good stretch or a pull.
Right. But most of the time it's that the problem up by the steering head. And I thought I had alleviated mine by just kind of moving things around, eliminating a bunch of stuff. I've eliminated most of the wiring on the lighting side on that thing, aside from, basic headlight, tail light. But
so there you go. Even awesome mechanics are not immune from their own bikes going bad, but
dirt bikes take a lot of abuse.
But like I always tell people, it's like, how do you get to this experience level where you guys are at, from making mistakes and learning from them? And it was just interesting to after kind of me just, we'll call it digitally diagnosing the problem, and then kind of seeing a very similar problem. And that's why I got really interested in it.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to kind of take a deep dive, and I'm still curious. And one of you two has to report back to me when you find out.
Oh, yeah. As soon as we find out, because I'm not done. I'm not just going to bolt it back together and cross my fingers and hope it's good. I'm gonna keep dissecting it, and
okay. So at this point, it starts, it runs. You could just bolt it back together, and you could take it riding tomorrow.
Right?
Would you?
I could. I wouldn't go very far, or from the truck with it.
Yeah. Because you may have to do this.
Correct.
If you can't find, I always want to find out exactly what it is, and then okay, once I figure out what it is, like, why did that? What really caused that? What was the reasoning behind it?
Yeah.
So, well, anyways, I'm glad we got to pick on you for your bike. I'm, like I said, thoroughly confused, but at the same time,
me too. I don't understand why it all of a sudden started today.
Yeah. But when things magically work again, that bothers me more than like,
I would have rather found something that was a massive catastrophe on the bike, but at least known the problem.
A goof up,
or not even a goof up, maybe, but just a part failure. Hey, this failed, and it failed because of this. It's not a good thing when it doesn't, when you don't have a reason.
Right. So Michael Cox says, "Man, you guys are hard to please." Oh, is he one of the guys in the? I think he's talking about Rooster Endo or beating up on our host for the show tonight. Let's see. And Worldly Rider says, "Do riders have lower testicles on average? What compression sorts best prevent this?"
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, we get all kinds.
Yeah.
I really can't answer that. And
each their own.
Yeah. There's a different show for that. Maybe Matt Mattoon has a show for that one that he's working on the side. I don't know. Very interesting why Matt's bike failed. It just, and the fact that it just,
it was running perfectly.
Yeah, when it shut off, because if a wire would have broke, would that have made it shut off?
Yes,
it should have. Right?
It would, yeah, if the right wire, if depending on what the wire that broke is, but yes, if it's something in the ignition related side or fuel pump side, yes, it would.
So here's another thing. So I had a bike that had an ECU failure, and I think I talked about this last week also. I had one bike that literally had an intermittent ECU failure that was very weird and hard to diagnose.
OEM ECU?
Yes, OEM ECU. And that's why I noticed yours has a vortex on it. And I think there was something with the vortex ignitions, and this was a long time ago. This is back in 2015. There was something that they had an issue with, but I think it had to do with more with one of the switches that plugs in.
Okay. Yeah.
That was, and you don't have the switches plugged into it. So yeah, you never know.
I mean, we've seen one or two over the years of a factory ECU go bad where the bike ran, but it ran terribly, and we chased our tail for a while trying to figure out why does this thing run so bad. And finally we plugged in a different ECU and think boom, right? But we've never seen a vortex ECU go bad. We've never seen a get go bad. They're all pretty good, and like I said, one or two over the years of OEM.
Okay, well, we're learning, in the process of learning. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for joining in. If you want to support us, like I said, you can go to Dirt Bike Test. If you want to learn about all the off-road 450s, or not all of them, 4 of them, the Gas, the Honda, the Yamaha, and the Kawasaki, check out the videos that are coming. There's a few more to be released. And another thing I wanted to talk about is like why we kind of picked a winner, and we did rank them just to show you how everybody ranked and picked them. But that's why we have the videos up with individual preferences. And I just want to point out that my video has more views than anybody else's. I wonder why. I'm going to bump it on social media. I'm really good at that. I'm going to put it on my Twitter books, and so everybody will watch that one. Don't watch Matt's intermediate level video because you only want to watch professional ones, right, Matt?
Hey, the top comment actually was saying that this guy was saying that I represent probably 75% of the population who's actually going to be buying these bikes. So
you know what, Matt, they're absolutely right. And you're like I said, your take on motorcycles is probably a lot more relevant than a lot of what what us pros think. But we just have what we have is a little bit more experience in breaking the bikes apart, taking and explaining stuff. So
yeah.
Anyways, check those things out. There's lots more stuff coming. I finally got my exhaust system for my WR450, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of tuning and getting my video done for that. I should probably put this picture on the internet of me eating Spam. It's a memory on Facebook. So anyhow, thanks to Inside Line Moto. Thanks to Tim. Thanks to Matt here for letting me stopping by the shop. If I was in the Orange County area and I couldn't diagnose my bike, I'd bring it here. It's there's no doubt about it. And I actually, Tim reminded me on when I was out in the desert one time with a ailing KTM. Who did I call?
Yeah,
you guys, because I knew that you had experience with these kind of things and you could fix it. So really awesome to kind of get back and see these guys. And with that, thanks to you, Matt, for figuring out how to push all the buttons on your side of the border over there in Nevada.
Yeah, no problem.
We will, and with that, for Matt, and for Tim, I'm Jimmy Lewis, and we will see you out in the trail. So cheers.